Chapter 9, Extension Day 1 Notes. All right, we are starting with looking at tangents, secants, and chords intersecting. So the first one we're going to do is look at where they intersect in the circle, what happens to those arcs and angles. All right, so if two secants or chords intersect inside a circle, then the measure of the angle formed is equal to half the sum of the intercepted arcs. So if I want to find angle 1 here, we're going to take half of the arcs that go with angle 1. So the arcs that go with angle 1 would be these outside two arcs. So we're averaging those two arcs to equal those two vertical angles there. All right, so we go half of the arc on the left there, the measure of AD, and then and then plus the measure of BC. So we can add them up and take half of it, or add them up, divide by 2. All right, to find angle 2, we're going to take half. Since this is the angle on the top, we're going to use the top and the bottom arc. So we're going to go half the measure of AB plus the measure of DC. All right, so let's practice that here. So example 1, we want to know what is the measure of angle AED. So AED is on the left, so then I need to use the left and right arcs. Okay, so I can go 1/2 of 45 plus 109. So we're going to get 1/2 of, add those up, 154. So then the measure of angle AED would equal 77 degrees. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the odd ones here, and then you can do the even ones here. All right, so number 3. This time I want a different angle, so I can still use the two arcs to help me get this inside angle. But after I figure it out, I need to subtract from 180 to get that top angle there. Okay, so we can still go half. Half of 43 plus 81, which equals 62. The only thing, 62 is not the degree they want us to find. We are asked to find YWX. So the measure of angle YWX, we have to subtract from 180. Those are supplementary or linear pair. So 180 minus 62 would be 118. There we go. All right, let's do the next one here. So we are trying to find arc this time, CDE. So see if we can work backwards and find the arc. So I can call that arc X. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, we already know that inside angle. So we're going to go 128 equals 1/2 times, since I'm trying to find that arc, I do the arc, or the arc. I do the arc on the left and the right there. So 73 and then plus X. All right, so you can multiply by 2 to undo that 1/2, or divide it by 2 to get 256 equals 73 plus X, and then we can subtract the 73 to get 183. All right, so that's what the measure of arc CDE would be. All right, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do the evens here, 2, 4, and 6. I'll zoom out for a minute so you can see these. All right, so number 2. This time we are trying to find like the bottom angle there, so we can use the top and bottom arcs. So you average those arcs to get that middle one. So we add them up and divide by 2 or take half of it. So the number 2 should be 149. Number 4, if we add up the arcs, the one we didn't know, so x plus 74, take half of it, equal to 62. We should get x to be 50 degrees. All right, that last one, the first thing we had to do with that one was to find the linear pair there, or the supplement to 79 was 101. Then use that as our angle along with the arcs 95 and x. So 101 equals 1/2 times 95 plus x. Multiply by 2 and subtract that 95. All right, let's go to the next page. All right, what happens when your two lines, so your tangent and your secant, meet on the circle? The measure of angle 1 is just going to be half the measure of arc AB. Okay, and then if I wanted angle 2 over here, we take half of the arc that goes with it, BCA. Okay, so let's practice this here. So again, we'll do the odds and you can do the evens here. Number 7, you're given the arc is 308. Really got to look at what are you given, what are you being asked. We're being asked to find the angle DEG that goes with that arc. So now we can just take half of that big arc, 308, and that will be that angle DEG. So half of 308 would be 154. So the measure of angle DEG equals 154. All right, number 9, if they get asked for it in the other way around here, what is the arc XY? So first I need to figure out what is the angle that goes with it. A couple ways to do it. You could subtract from 180 to get the angle, then double it, or we could figure out the arc that goes with 151, so double it and then subtract 360. So kind of a couple different ways to do it. I might just use the idea of the linear pair because they gave us that angle was 151. So to get that purple angle I have marked there, we can just subtract from 180, and that'd be 29. So now we can just take the angle equals half the arc that goes with it. So this would be the measure of XY. And so what I can do to find the measure of XY again is just multiply by 2. So just working backwards here. So 58 degrees should equal the measure of XY. So the angle is half the arc is twice as much as the angle. Since we were trying to find the arc, we actually had to double that angle. All right, go ahead and pause the video. Try 8 and 10. All right, so number 8, you're given the arc that you don't need. So I cut it in half to get 96 and then subtract from 180 to get the angle that we do need, which is 84. An alternate method to solve this would be to subtract from 360 right away. So if we subtract from 360, we could get 168 for arc DB and then divide by 2 to get 84. So a couple different ways to get your answer. This one, for number 10, we are given the angle. So what I did was I doubled the angle to get 46. That's the arc there, KM. And then I just subtracted from 360 to get that leftover arc to be 314 degrees. All right, next. What if your two lines meet on the exterior? So it could be two tangents. It could be a tangent and a secant, or two secants. You do the same formula no matter which one it is. Okay, so always you're just taking the big arc minus the small arc and then cut it in half or divide by 2. Over here, it's the big arc minus the small arc. And finally, this big arc minus the small arc. So it looks a little bit different depending which type of lines you have. I'll go ahead and write the formula here for the first one. So we're going to take that half of the big arc minus the small arc. And then this one, half of the big arc, BD, minus the small arc. And then go ahead and write that last equation. What would that one do if we did the big arc minus the small arc? Should be measure of BDC, arc BDC minus BC. If you accidentally do it the other way around, you're going to get a negative number for the arc. So just make sure you're taking the big arc first and then minus the small arc. All right, so let's try one here. So here we go. I have 2 secant, so it's that first case. The measure of angle KLM. So this is finding that exterior angle. Okay, so we can say to find that angle, we can say half the sum of the big arc, 140, minus the small arc, 66. So you can either subtract them, then divide it by 2, or subtract them and take half of that. Whichever way you do it, you should get 37 degrees for that angle. All right, let's do number 13. We'll stick with the odds here. Okay, this one's a little tougher because we don't know the big arc, but we do know the angle. So we're going to go angle equals half of that big arc. We're going to call it X or whatever you want to call it, minus the small arc, and then divided by 2 or cut it in half there. So I would multiply by 2 right away to get rid of that 1/2. So then we have to do it to both sides though. So it's going to be 80 equals X minus 75, and then add that 75 to the other side. So it should be 155 degrees equals X. All right, we're going to skip down to number 17. So again, we're taking that big arc minus the small arc, divided by 2 equals the angle. Again, this one gave me the angle. So we go 77 equals the big arc minus, I don't know that smaller arc, so I'm going to say minus X. So again, make sure you put the bigger arc first there. So I would multiply by 2 right away to get 54. So we went times 2 to cancel that out, times 2. And then 154 equals 191 minus X. Now this one kind of seems weird for a minute because when I subtract 191, I'm actually going to get a negative number. So I get negative 37 equals negative X. However, that still has a negative in front of the X. That's like a negative 1. So we've got to divide by negative 1. So then your angle is 37 degrees, or your arc. If you want to double check your answer, you can take 191 minus 37 and then divide by 2. Make sure you get 77. All right, let's take a look at 19. This one, when you take a first glance at it, it seems like you don't have enough information, but we actually do. Because they're giving us the big arc, but notice that this one's 2 tangents. So the small arc is just the leftover of the circle. So if we go, that angle that we're looking for equals 1/2 of the big arc, and then minus the smaller arc. So that smaller arc, it seems like we don't know it, but notice it's just the rest of the circle. So we can take 360 minus 313 to get 47. That's going to be your small arc. So So now I can take 1/2 of 313 minus 47, which is 135 degrees. And then that's what that exterior angle would be, 135. All right, go ahead and pause the video and then see which one of these you can get done before we resume. If you already have them all done, you can go ahead and start on the assignment. All right, so number 12, you can take half of that big arc minus the small arc divided by 2, which ends up being 24. 14. Again, half of the big arc minus the small arc, but we do not know the big arc this time. So we had to call that x. So we can say the angle equals 35 equals 1/2 of x minus 46. Right away, I multiply by that 2 to get rid of the 1/2. So then I can get x is 116. We had skipped 15 earlier. So if you did 15, that one was a basic one. It should be 51 degrees. Big arc minus small arc divided by 2 or times 1/2. Number 16, this one we had to first calculate what is the big arc. We could find that because we are already given the 2 arcs of the circle, and this is just the third remaining arc. So we can take 360 minus the 2 arcs we knew to get that 210. Once I know that's 210, I can say big arc minus small arc and then divide by 2 or cut it in half. And we get 74 degrees for the outside angle. And finally, number 18. 18 and 20, I guess 2 more. 18, we had to first find that missing arc. So we could go the angle equals 1/2 the big arc minus the small arc. Okay, so we end up getting 48 for that one. And then number 20, we can take half of, again, that one you had to subtract from 360 to see what the big arc is. So 360 minus 106 is 254. That is the big arc. Now I can take big arc minus small arc divided by 2. This was another one with those 2 tangents. So the arcs match up together. So here's the big arc, and then the small arc is just that leftover. So you have every degree on the circle accounted for. That's how we could figure out that 254. All right, so that outside angle should be 74 degrees. All right, go ahead and get started with that assignment on page 9 and 10 with the extension number 1. Let me know if you have any questions.